Alright guys, we are back for another episode of Sensible Investing. Happy Easter everyone. Hope you're enjoying this long weekend locked up inside with nowhere to go. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Jesse, and for those of you who are returning, welcome back. It's good to have you here. So as you guys can tell by the title, today's video is all about Boeing, right? We're going to be talking about Boeing. We're going to be talking about Boeing stock. We're going to be talking about Boeing shares, what's going on with the company, what will happen in the years to come, right? Today's video is all about Boeing, right? We're going to talk about whether the stock is a buy or whether they're likely to go bust with the current situation. And if you guys have been following Boeing, you can probably tell that this company, it's just bad news after bad news, one problem after another problem, and really they just can't seem to catch a break lately. And I know that some of you guys commented on my previous video about airlines, asking me what my thoughts were about Boeing, and I told you that my thoughts were bearish, right? And I know that some of you then commented and said, well, look, Boeing's not just about commercial airplanes, it's not just about selling to the airline industry. They also do have a thriving defense and military aviation business. And so what I did was I had a deeper look. And after my deeper look, I am still bearish about Boeing. So that's why I wanted to make this video, to run you guys through why. Okay, guys? And I'm not short Boeing. I'm just answering your questions as to why I wouldn't be interested in investing in the company. So as you guys can see here, they have a thriving military business. And based on the latest figures from 2019, when we discount, the revenue lost from the whole 737 issue, the MAX issue, we can see that their military and global services business is still thriving. However, this is just from the very, very surface level look. If we go a little bit deeper, we'll actually see that because of the way that their business is structured, and in terms of their operating leverage, they need a lot of volume in order to have good profits, right? Good operating income and good net income. If they don't have the volume, they have massive sunk costs that, if they don't sell enough planes, there would be no way to recoup that, okay? And I know that some of you guys might be saying, well, this is only temporary and, their perhaps military or services business will cover the shortfall. And that's simply not the case, all right, guys? And the reason being is, like I mentioned before, because of the operating leverage and the amount of fixed costs, fixed assets, fixed people power, fixed R&D, fixed everything, and the amount that they have to use on things like maintenance, CapEx, maintenance, R&D, etc., etc., it's massive, right? Furthermore, if you actually have a look at their projected future revenue and what the market was pricing, you'll actually see that they were projecting, 500 plus deliveries of the 737 year after year after year, which is what actually largely comprised their backlog, and we'll look at that very shortly. And as you can see, just a reduction of 400 odd planes, the amount of damage that it does to their business is absolutely massive, right? And keep in mind that this is a self-inflicted issue that they went through, and this doesn't take into account all of the future upcoming issues that would be caused by the things like the global travel ban, disruptions, airlines potentially going under, massively cutting back their spend, and etc. If we have a look at the backlog, we'll see that the military backlog, it's pretty stable and it's pretty steady, right? So the future growth and a large portion of the future revenues and the I guess the profits, right, is priced on the commercial segment of the company. This is a massive at-risk portion, right? The biggest question mark right now is their commercial segment. And if we look at the breakdown, we're talking 80% of it has a massive question mark next to it. Okay? And some of you might say, well, look, 90-something% of that's under contract, so it should be safe. And what we'll do is we'll cover a little bit later why, again, I don't really agree with that statement. Okay? Now, let's have a look at the US military spending from the year 2003 till today. What we can see is that, yes, it's absolutely, the demand is there, and it's increased, and it's steadily increasing. But if you average out the last few years, and then you sort of look at what the percentage increases year on year, you'll notice that it's only about 2.5 to 3.5%. So what this means is that the increase in military spending, it's not really a big area of growth for Boeing. In fact, 2.5%, that's pretty much just keeping up with inflation, right? Their growth area is and will be, whenever it returns to normal, commercial air traffic, right? We're talking private people flying with airlines to different places on their standard airplanes, okay? So we're not talking attack helicopters, we're not talking fighter jets. These growth numbers, especially for 2019 and 2020, this was projected without the impact of the current situation going on at the moment, right? I can't say the C word because I'll get demonetized, but you guys know what I'm talking about. So we don't actually know how bad yet it's going to be and what the impact to demand is, especially in terms of the ordering of the new airplanes. And keep in mind, now let's take AirAsia for example, okay? They are offering an all-you-can-fly buffet for under $120 USD in order to restore confidence in people traveling. This issue that AirAsia is facing, just like every other airline, it's not self-inflicted, right? So the fact that an airline has to offer $120 all-you-can-fly buffet fixed fee just to bring back the confidence in people to actually travel among this whole sort of crisis, and the fact that the issues aren't self-inflicted like Boeing 737 MAX issues are, then we have to ask ourselves, to what degree does Boeing have to take action in order not only to help restore confidence in the planes itself, but also help the airline industry to restore confidence in people to just fly in general and travel, okay? And the closest example that I could find to this was Malaysia Airlines. And as you guys can see over here, one can argue that Malaysia Airlines actually never recovered, okay? And if we think about what happened to their 3 planes, the situation is very, very similar to the predicament that Boeing found themselves in with their 737 issue, okay? And as you can see, after the massive catastrophe in 2014, Malaysia Airlines, they never ever recovered the flyers' confidence, okay? And as a result, their share of the market absolutely plummeted. That's another headwind that's going for Boeing, not just the fact that they've got the self-inflicted issue, but the actual industry-wide issue that they have to deal with. And taking a quote or this tweet from an analyst that works quite heavily in the airline industry, that speaks with airlines every day, airline executives, as you can see, the general sentiment is that nobody is going to be buying any planes for the coming 6 to 9 months. And the focus for the airlines is really on survival, okay? So what they're going to do is they've already got an existing fleet. Yes, it might be a little bit old. Yes, it might be a little bit fuel inefficient, but the fuel costs are at all-time lows. And again, they're just trying to do everything to preserve capital and survive. And the last thing that they'll be doing is buying planes for hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And I know at this point, some of you guys might be saying, well, look, it's under long-term contract. Worst case scenario, they'll probably just defer these purchases and purchase it at some point out. So really, it's not lost income for Boeing. And my argument to that is that I'd say that in a normal market circumstance and in a normal scenario, yes, most probably you're right? They'll probably defer that out. They might receive a little bit of a credit, kind of like what's happening with the cruise industry, where, rather than receiving a refund, they will get a credit towards future trips, okay guys? But the difference between commercial and general sort of civil B2C and B2B, and I have an extract over here from a top Australian law firm holding Redlick, is that we have the force majeure clause. And the thing is about the force majeure clause is it effectively allows people to get out of a contract if these 3 key criteria can be met. I think we can safely say that the current situation with the whole lockdown and global sort of disruption, that fits under force majeure. Now, obviously, I don't have a copy of the actual Boeing contract from themselves to the airlines, right? The people that they supply planes to. But I did manage to get an extract, a paragraph from a Boeing contract, which they have an agreement with their suppliers. And as you can see, they do have a clause in here for force majeure, and it specifically mentions things like epidemics and quarantine restrictions, which is exactly what we have going on at the moment. Now, if anybody is more familiar with the airline industry or even works in the industry and has seen one of these contracts, look, I would love to hear from you just to see if this is indeed correct. and whether the Boeing contracts with the airlines do have a force majeure clause for either party to get out in the event of an unforeseen circumstance. Either way, there's going to be protracted legal battles and legal back and forth, which is another set of expenses for Boeing, right? So they've got now 3 headwinds to deal with. They've got their self-inflicted issue, they've got the global pandemic issue, and then now they've got the issue where they will be trying to push for the contracts to be deferred rather than cancelled, but then you'll have buyers invoking the force majeure clause, and it's really, really going to get a little bit messy and a little bit ugly, okay, guys? Let's take Avalon, for example, right? Avalon is a company that has recently cancelled a bunch of their Boeing orders. They've effectively reduced their orders and intake by 42%, okay? And that's not including the current situation with the whole pandemic. So one has to wonder how much that will be amplified, including the current situation. And as we covered earlier, because of the business model and how Boeing operates their business, their operating leverage requires volume because of the massive sunk costs, okay? And so if we have a look at this, their commitments are being cut and the demand is being cut up until 2023, this should theoretically have at least 2 to 3 years of negativity in terms of impact to the company, massive losses, etc., etc. So at the moment, I really just don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. For the reasons mentioned in this video, this is exactly why Boeing has failed to make my list of companies to watch or buy, just purely because of the massive level of uncertainty, right? Now, they're definitely not going to go under because they've already been confirmed that they qualify for a bailout, okay? So the government's just going to keep pumping money. But keep in mind, the bailouts are not to save shareholders. They're to save the employees of the company, okay? Because they're a massive employer and they are considered an essential business, okay? So the bailout, the shareholders would be the last people that the Federal Reserve or whoever's bailing Boeing out would be concerned about, okay? Right now, we don't have any visibility over the true extent of the damage to the sector and the business. We don't have any visibility in terms of the timeline of the sector recovery. We don't have any visibility in terms of, which airlines are going to go under and which ones aren't, and then how much smaller they're going to become as a result of this and when they're going to return to their original size. We don't have any visibility over cash burn, and we really don't have any visibility over the amount of debt needed to take on by Boeing in order to get them out of this mess and how long they'll be burning cash for. In fact, I wouldn't actually be surprised if, let's say Boeing does get bailed out, that the government's going to take a stake in their business and they might order Boeing to actually divest the commercial business away from the military business, right? Because the majority of the self-inflicted issues are with the commercial side. The military is still doing fine, albeit there are a few issues with the military planes as well. But having said that, I would not be surprised if the Fed or whoever bails Boeing out requests Boeing to divest and spin off their commercial aviation arm from their military and defense arm and list it as a separate company, okay? Because as Jerome Powell rightly said, they are not in the business of losing money, okay? And let me tell you right now, if Boeing do get bailed out by the Fed, what's going to happen is we as shareholders, if we have shares, or you, because I don't invest in Boeing, you're going to be at the very, very bottom of the food chain in terms of who gets paid and who gets the benefit. All right, guys, so that's the end of the video. And look, I'm sorry if some of you guys are really bullish on Boeing and wanted to see a bullish analysis, but I really just can't find any reason to be bullish on Boeing right now, okay, guys? So look, I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, happy investing.